You are listening to the podcast That's Life in Sweden, or as we say in Swedish, Sånt är livet i Sverige, with me, your host, Lisa Åsimäki. Today I welcome Professor Gesa Weyhenmeyer from Uppsala University, whose passion is about understanding the impact of climate change on our lakes. She's also a lifetime member of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences. Hello and welcome, Gesa, to the podcast. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. So can you just provide a brief background to who is Gesa Weyhenmeyer?
Oh, this is very interesting because there are so many aspects. And if you want to know something from my private life, then I can reveal that I'm born in Germany and I'm in the 50s. And as you already said, I think it's most of interest that I talk about a little bit of the scientific background. And you already mentioned that I'm a professor, and I became a professor 12 years ago. And that was in Sweden at Uppsala University. And I actually moved to Sweden, about 30 years ago. I was living in different countries then, but you can say I entered my first step into Sweden 30 years ago. So that is a brief background, but there are so many other aspects, of course. So depending on what you want to hear, I can give more detailed information.
Yes. Now, I know you lived in several countries. You are German by birth?
Yes, I'm born in Germany, in the old capital Bonn, yes.
Okay. And you also lived in different countries. Can you just give a few examples where you have spent, because you did your master's not in Germany?
I actually did my bachelor in Canada. I got a stipend and I had a scholarship and went to Canada to Trent University. It's a small university near Toronto, and that was a very great time. So I got my bachelor from Trent University.
All right. And so where did you get your master's and PhD? Was it in Germany?
Now that is actually interesting because during those times I started my PhD when I was 22, and I actually didn't need to have a master's thesis. So I started a PhD already after 3 years of studying. That was possible during those times. I was asked by a professor whether I would like to start. So I don't have a master's.
Wow. Okay. Yeah,
and ended up a PhD, and my PhD I got in Sweden.
All right, so it was in Sweden. Now, you have a passion for our lakes ecosystems. So can you talk about what made you initially interested in exploring lakes ecosystem? Was that part of your PhD, or how did it come about?
Yes, that was actually when I made and I got my bachelor. I wanted to go back to Germany to study hydrology because that was my major actually. And then I needed to have some practical work, and I asked around, and I initially wanted to study glaciers in the world. I was interested in the Arctic and Antarctica, and I actually went also to those regions later on. But then I got an offer from a professor, and he said, well, I can't offer you a glacier, but I can offer you a landscape which is formed by glaciers. And that was a place in Sweden close to Stockholm where they have a field station directly located at a lakeside. Mm-hmm. And that was the reason why I actually got really interested, because I needed to take water samples and analyzed a lot of different variables in the lake water. And for me, the landscape with all the lakes, that was just fantastic. And then I was asked whether I would like to start a PhD, which was actually the topic was lake ecosystems. And that was the reason why I ended up with lakes.
Wow. And so it has actually followed you right through all these years. You've actually just become more embedded in understanding our lakes' ecosystems.
Yes, I started with one particular lake, and I still love this lake. But then I broadened it a lot, and I first studied. I mean, Sweden has about 300,000 lakes. You have a lot of study objects. And I was traveling around in Sweden, but then I was also interested on a global scale, because lakes are very, very different around the globe. And that was something where I really put my effort into understanding lakes. What kind of similarities do they have, and how far do they differ, and what drives the water quality? So that I went from local to global.
Yes, yes, yes. And you always do. For some reason, when you start researching one area, it's just not locally one, you discover all these wonderful things that are happening elsewhere. But, so a great deal of your research is carried out within the Global Lake Ecological Observatory network, or GLEON. So to get a bit of an understanding of what is happening to our lakes globally, can you share 3 major concerns that has come to light, and whether those concerns are being addressed or not?
So that is a very interesting question, because it depends where you are in the world. I mean, there are major concerns for Swedish lakes, but if you go to African lakes, they have complete different challenges to deal with. So I would say, if you take the global scale, then the major concern is because all lakes in the world have to deal with climate change. There's not a single lake in the world which is not actually affected by climate change. So that is a major concern, of course, because it's not only that we lose ice on lakes, it completely changes the mixing system, and the mixing is very important for all ecological processes in a lake. And many lakes in the world dry out. We have about 115 million people that actually suffer from lakes that completely dry out. So that is, of course, a major concern globally. And then we have another major concern, because we use so many, or produce so many organic chemicals, like pharmaceuticals, and all these kind of textiles, and many different products which actually, where we have rest products which end up in the water in the end, and they actually are distributed via the atmosphere. So everything which is found in the atmosphere, and there's a lot traveling around in the atmosphere, is in the end also ending up in our lakes. And there we have a cocktail of different chemical reactions, and we don't have a clue what actually the end product is. So that's also a major concern. And then you have, of course, local and regional major concerns. And it's still a concern that we have major algae blooms, where we have toxins that are not good for any life on Earth. And when we have still regions where we have mining, and that means that lakes actually get acidified. So there are many different regional and local threats to waters, actually.
And how are some of the concerns addressed, or are we ignoring them? What do you think?
It depends where we are. I think in Europe, we are actually quite aware of what kind of problems there are, because we have a European Water Framework Directive, which means that our waters, surface waters, are regularly monitored, and the status is reported. And if you don't reach a good ecological status, you need to do something. So there are lots of efforts in Europe that actually try to improve the quality of the water. And we have very good examples. But of course, even if you do something, some waters still continue to get a water quality which is not sufficient, and then you have toxins in there, and some other major threats of concern. So many are addressed, but when it comes to the distribution via the atmosphere, and when it comes to many chemical reactions where we actually don't know, if you don't know anything, you can't do anything. And that is a major concern, of course. And worldwide, I mean, we have lots of lakes in poor or low-income countries, and they are well aware of the problems, but they don't have the money to do anything.
Yes.
So it's globally very, very different. But I would say we know much more and do too little concerned, what is actually upcoming in future.
And of course, I'm thinking about the concerns, and if we're not addressing, I can well imagine how it is actually influencing or having an impact on our on individual human beings' health.
Yes, because we use the lake water as drinking water.
Yes.
We use it as food resources. We use it for recreation. And of course, whatever you do to a lake, in the end, it hits you back to yourself. Because if we pollute a lake, then in the end, you drink the water or use the water for irrigation or whatever. And then it comes back, the pollution, into your own body. So you can directly actually compare the human health with the lake health.
Yes.
There's a direct relationship between it.
So what can you tell about the state of our lakes here in Sweden?
Yeah, actually, it's interesting, because if you ask students, they learn in school that many of the Swedish lakes still have algae blooms, and which is called eutrophication, and also the acidification is of something which you learn in school. And yes, we still have about 20% of the lakes in Sweden have still algae blooms and are eutrophied. But compared to 20 years ago, the status has become much, much better, because we have much better processes in the wastewater treatment plants. The phosphorus is reduced a lot. And also the acidification has improved. I mean, we don't have so many really acid lakes any longer. So there is actually, in a very positive way. What is not going into the right direction is the mercury level. We get a lot of mercury from the atmosphere, and this is accumulated in the fish, and also other organic pollutants which distribute via the air. So there are pros and cons. Many things have improved, and many things have unfortunately not improved. But compared on a global scale, the status of the Swedish lakes is still quite good, I would say.
And of course, there's a difference between our lakes and the ocean that is surrounding Sweden.
Yes, there's a big difference. If you take the Baltic Sea, that is a very special situation, because you don't have that comes back to the mixing. It's quite close, the basin, and there you suffer a lot from algae blooms, because you don't mix the water, and there's oxygen depletion, and you get the very heavy algae blooms, which is still a problem. It has been a problem for a long, long time, but it's not improving because it's getting warmer. And the nutrients leak from the sediments. So that is still a major concern, of course.
Now, when you were mentioning about some of the issues with our lakes, I'm thinking of our major lakes. There's something, I'm not sure if this is, you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but is there kind of, do you think there will be a sort of that you cannot eat the fish from a particular lake, or are we going towards something like that we are being warned that you shouldn't eat the fish or, from the lakes?
Yes, there are actually warnings, and that concerns the mercury level. I mean, if you are pregnant, then there are guidelines that you shouldn't eat in-lake fish. There are certain species which you shouldn't eat too much of. So it's not, the toxins and mercury is in particular is accumulated in fish, and there are guidelines. So it's not so that you can eat everything from a lake.
We like to think that fish is good for us, and suddenly we cannot eat as much as perhaps we used to.
And you should actually think about, I mean, if you think what you eat, it's always good to eat a large variety of different things, because there are so many. In particular, if you only eat one fish species, then it's never good, because you don't know what is accumulated in a particular fish species. But if you eat a fish from the sea, and then from in lake, and you just vary your food intake a little bit, then it's much better, because then you have a broader perspective, and you don't. It's different how different toxins and metals and organic pollutants accumulate in different fish species. Not all accumulate the same amount. So that's quite a good advice to eat a large variety of different things.
What do you think of farming, fish farming? Do you think
Oh,
that's
wow. That's a very hot topic as well, because if you do fish farming, then you destroy the ecosystem, of course. So if you do it, we need food. I mean, we can't prevent from eating food, but we need to be aware of that there's no connection to a natural lake ecosystem, and because you need a lot of nutrients to take this to get the right fish and to really produce it. If you do it in the right way and are really careful that you keep the nutrients and everything in a closed system, then of course it's like land use. I mean, it's a form which destroys something, but it's a compromise, I would say.
Mm-hmm. What sort of advice do you have, or do you give to people who are, we are entering our summer season and everyone is heading out to the lakes this summer? What kind of advice do you want people to consider?
Well, I think that the major concern for humans, that is something which is not visible. If it's really, really warm and you have wind still conditions, then and a lot of people bathing at the same shoreline, then there's a risk of bacterial production. And that is something which is maybe the major threat, that we have bacteria in the water in high accumulation. And the official bathing places at lakes, they're actually tested regularly, because that's also a European guideline that you need to test it. Mm-hmm. So there usually you can, if it's not saying that it's forbidden to bathe, or it's not recommended to have a bath here, then I would say, okay, that has been tested. And the other concern, but this is luckily visible, I mean, we have these heavy algae blooms, particularly close to cities where people usually take a bath. I think no one really is keen on going swimming in a green, slimy water. So that is actually something which is prevented by nature, that you probably don't go into it. Then we have some lakes, especially the very brown water lakes. It's not a real concern for human beings, but there's also an algae bloom which some dogs can suffer from. So
okay.
That is something which, if it's really brown, if it's really green, the water, then probably I would say choose another bathing place.
Mm-hmm. The latest thing that has happened, in the news, we can see we have now a so-called blue flag that they have put in some beaches outside. On the beaches here in Gothenburg or in Sweden. So is there something similar for lakes, or is it only the ocean?
No, there are similar approaches for lakes, actually. If it's close to a bigger city where many people go actually swimming, then we have similar.
Now to a different topic. Now, you are an excellent or a distinguished teacher at Uppsala University, and I'm curious, why did you apply for the title, considering you were at the time already an associate professor?
Well, it's interesting. I was actually already a professor, full professor at that time.
Sorry.
No, that doesn't matter. But for me, it was really important, because that is typical. You first become professor, and then the university realizes, oh, maybe we should do something for promoting that not only the science is going forward, but also the pedagogical approaches. And I was always interested in and giving the right form of information to society, students, and from the pedagogical point of view, for me, it's really important. I mean, of course, you can do a lot as a scientist, but if you really want to have a change, you need to also teach, and you need to promote something. So for me, it was actually the first round that Uppsala University initiated this distinguished teacher qualification. And I was keen on showing, okay, first of all, it's possible to do both in a good way, to combine a good research with a good pedagogical approach, and it really feeds each other. And then I was thinking I want to support it, because I think it's extremely important, and there are many people doing a great job when it comes to teaching and outreach and all these things, and they never get the same amount of credits as a researcher does. And then for me, it's important that this is awarded as to some extent, to just demonstrate there are people that really do it from a scientific point of view, in a pedagogical from a pedagogical point of view. So that was a reason why I was keen on actually applying for it.
And how difficult was it?
Since it was the first round, we didn't have any comparison, and there were quite many people who didn't get it the first round. They were quite strict in what is required when to become an excellent teacher, because they really wanted a fundamental scientific base for it. Yes. That's something which many people, they do a great job in teaching, and they have great thoughts, but maybe not really that much connected to scientific literature and things like this. So that was, and then the leadership was also something where many people struggled with. You needed to demonstrate that you really can lead, and also can come with your information and inform other people, and have this collegial approach. So it was quite difficult, and I would write my application completely different nowadays. I didn't have any clue how to do it. But that's how you learn.
Yes. So what, in your perspective, what makes an excellent or distinguished teacher today?
I personally still think if you manage to make other people interested in a certain subject, so that they go and search for information and get this critical thinking and this enthusiasm and want to have changes. For me personally, that is a major key, and you don't need to be an excellent teacher for that. I understand that you need to have this connection to the scientific literature, but if I'm really honest, then I think many people have this naturally, and they probably don't know the right terminology, but they do it anyway. If you know what I mean. We have fancy words, we have fancy approaches, and people are not probably aware that this has a name, but they do it. For me, it's more important that people do it instead of having nice words and writing. I think an excellent person is that we frame the next generation of people, or also the right now the generation, that the change is happening in society. For me, that is really important, that we get aware of what we are doing and why we are doing things.
Are you still involved in teaching today, or have your research commitment replaced a lot of the time that you used to teach?
Well, no, I always try to keep teaching as well, because I think it's important. So I still have a big undergraduate course. It's not the research which takes over, unfortunately. It's faculty work. I work a lot for the leading positionships in the faculty. So I'm 40%. I was 6 years in the recruitment committee for the faculty, and now I have a chair position in the Natural Science Educational Board of Uppsala University. So it's still important for me. So I would never accept that I'm working at a university and have no teaching at all. But of course, I mean, coming from maybe 40% teaching, now it's maybe something like 15%. You go down in the percentage and don't have as many courses. But it's important, and then you replace it mainly not by research activities, but by leadership positions and commitments for the faculty and things like this.
Mm-hmm. What sort of incentives do you think would work to attract students to study sciences?
And that's a very good and important question. And as a chair of the natural science education at Uppsala University, we think a lot about this. And I think you need to start early. You need to start in school. And the key is that you have engaged and enthusiastic and really good teachers in school. And I think what we also miss maybe a little bit, because we still keep the science like math, physics, biology, and we keep them really separate. But our societal challenges, they need to be solved that you combine it. And that is a challenge already in school that you need to tackle, because and then you get maybe people interested. And yes, we have a lot of people, and the last European Union election actually showed this, that people are interested in environmental and the climate change questions, but you don't see this necessarily in what the students choose. Right now, at the moment, the economy is still the major thing. The younger generation, they want to make money, and they think you can't make money in science, and that is the unfortunate truth which we have to face. Mm-hmm. So they might be interested, but they are more interested in earning money.
Yes. Thinking about Greta Thunberg and her influence on young people taking interest in climate change, you haven't noticed whether there has been an increase in students enrolling in sciences because of, if you like, the Greta effect?
No, I don't think that we see an increase in the number of students, but people have maybe more thoughts. And what I realized is also, it's unfortunately also so that we actually have a generation who's really afraid of things instead of seeing the positive. We have a lot of positive examples what human beings have actually managed to improve on Earth, and now there is this status, the world goes down and there's no chance, it's too late anyway. So I try to be quite balanced in teaching, to give hope, but yes, we need to do something, but it's not hopeless, because then if students think it's hopeless, then you can't really reach anything. You need to give and then stay in hope and to say, okay, we human beings are really capable. And for example, the Corona crisis was something. Yeah, people can work together. If there is something, then really it takes time, but it's not hopeless, I would say.
And so I think what you're saying is that we have to become. I think we're not necessarily giving a positive message to our students. It's a bit like you said. It's a bit doom and gloom, and a lot about the effect of the effect of the COVID virus and especially young people's fear of it. And we haven't sort of given positive messages out, and that's why I thought, well, Greta Thunberg, she's pretty gloom, but she was more directing her gloomness towards the politicians and the decision makers, and she gathered so much interest among young people, and which I think is really empowering to note. So, is there anything that you would want to add to the conversation, or a message that you think about that could be provide, I feel like, a message of hope?
methods of hope. If we really see it from if we learn as a society to be good in critical thinking, and also learn that there's so much disinformation,
Yes.
then I think that would help a lot, because then you see things in different ways, and you see the positive sides, but you see also maybe, okay, there are some things where we need to put priority. We can't solve all problems at the same time, but we can solve problems, but we need to start, and we need to make some priority lists, and then the message might also be that money is not, there's a certain amount of money which you need to be satisfied, but then there are many, many more factors. And I would say that keeping the natural processes as intact as possible, that would help a lot to increase the happiness of society and for the future, because nature has the solutions, but we ignore this, and with all the technological things, they are good, but we also cannot neglect that we have to there are natural laws, and if we don't follow them, then we will lose a lot. Mm-hmm. So keep nature as intact as much as possible.
Yes, and enjoy the nature while you're looking after it. So
see the value of it.
Yes. So a final question: what are you doing this summer?
What I'm doing this summer? Oh wow! Now we come to an interesting aspect, because I started with track and field in my age class, and there's a world championship in track and field in Gothenburg for masters, and I will join the world championship in Gothenburg in August.
My goodness, Gesa, I am impressed. Wow, that is okay. So I'm going to keep an eye out for you. I'm going to be there with. I'm going to be.
Started with track and field, but I love this. We have a lot of fun, and it's something where you can keep yourself a little bit. That is a compensation for, and then you're outside and do some sports. So I love that approach.
That sounds so much fun, and of course, hey, I'm going to look out for you and have my camera. You will be the first winner.
No.
It's been absolutely lovely talking with you. And look, thank you so much for your time and you being so generous providing all this information, and particularly with your time, because I know, busy times at uni, but I really hope you will have a wonderful summer and good luck on the World Championships.
Thank you very much. And I wish you also a great summer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you have been listening to the podcast Sånt är livet i Sverige, or in English, That's Life here in Sweden, with me, Lisa Åsimäki. Till next time, take care of yourself and each other. Bye for now.